Hey, I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the tax roll for Oklahoma County. Today is Monday, July 14th, 2025. It is now 9:30 a.m. and notice of this meeting was properly posted on July the 11th, 2025. We have a quorum because there are two of us here. Mr. Stein decided not to come, but he sent his able-bodied lawyer to sit in his place. Mr. Davidson is, I think, away at a county commissioners national meeting. Today, we have three items on the agenda. Item one, discussion and possible action regarding the minutes of our meeting of June 16th, 2025.
I move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We have a consent agenda. Item two, discussion and possible action regarding the attached list of companies of erroneous assessment and petition for correction. This item is requested by Christy Bowen of the County Assessor's Office.
I move to approve.
Second, all in favor? Last item on the agenda, discussion and possible action to receive the attached Oklahoma County Assessor's Certificate of Clerical Error or Import. This item is requested also by Christy Bowen with the County Assessor.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there any citizen participation? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. To call the special meeting of the Board of Equalization of Oklahoma County to order. Today is Monday, July 14th, 2025. It is now 9:35 a.m. We have a full house. Mr. Brett Town.
Present.
Mr. Risa Sellers.
Present.
And I'm Eleanor Thompson. Notice of this meeting was properly posted on July 9th, 2025. Today, we have 2 items on the agenda. Item 1 is approval of our minutes. Discussion of possible action regarding our minutes of June 3rd, June 10th, and June 30th. Any corrections or changes?
Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
How do you vote, Mr. Town?
Yes.
Ms. Sellers?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Second item on the agenda, BOE number 155. This is Cactus Drilling Company, LLC, account number P.
Calling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's appearing by phone, I should say.
This is Eric.
Eric, this is Ms. Thompson calling you from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County Board of Equalization. Are you ready to proceed on our BOE number 155?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Have you ever appeared in front of us before?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Okay, this is BOE number 155, Cactus Drilling Company, LLC, account number P3124528. Okay, so how this goes, there's been an assessment made, valuation made on your property, I guess, of your clients, and you disagree with it. So we're going to hear from you first, then we're going to hear from the assessor's office. And then we'll let you have the last word, and then we will make a decision and inform you by mail. Now, ordinarily, because this is an appellate review, meaning we are just reviewing, we're not de novo settling your case or deciding your case. You should not ask us to consider something that you did not first ask at the preliminary, the assessor to do. I understand that you sent some things in Friday and even maybe emailed the assessor this morning. We will consider that, only if the assessor doesn't mind. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My notes indicate that the assessor has valuation of the property involved here at $12,856,861.
15.
Hmm?
815.
815.
851.
Okay, 851. I wrote 61. Okay, so, and there was 2 different numbers on your information. The last one I saw as I was going through them chronologically. You want a valuation of $445,684? Is that what you're asking us to set the value? The appraisal at?
No, ma'am.
No.
So the value that we'll be requesting is going to be $2,367,901. So that was on the last page of my packet. Yeah, as I was putting this together, I kind of understand that numbers may have been a little confusing, but yes, the number that we are asking you to consider is $2,367,901.
And so it's your contention that this rig will never be deployed anymore and you just got scrap salvage value going?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, well, I'll hear from you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So, this, I also want to point out before we get started, so the inventory accounts or any of the inventory line items that are listed for this account P3124528, those are not part of this discussion. We're fine with those values, so we're not disputing those inventory values. So what is going on with these rigs We have had kind of the same. We've had kind of the same issue the previous year, which I included in this packet. I included on which page is it? So I can get my.
I believe that was Friday's information that he sent.
Is this the new information? Because on the other one, basically your pages were blank, your forms didn't have information.
This is the pages reference.
I sent this on. Yes, ma'am. I sent this on Friday. This would be on page 4 of the PDF packet that I sent on Friday.
But you didn't, did you review that with the assessor's office during the informal? If you couldn't send it till Friday, obviously, no.
Yes. So yes, we spoke about last year's assessment in our informal discussion. So basically, the issue we're having is that we cut the value in half last year because we had the same argument. These rigs that are in this yard are not even really rigs. They're basically just scrap. What they really should be classified as is inventory, not rigs, because the money it would take to deploy these rigs back to the field, that's the email that I sent this morning that got a little more color on what's going on. So that's not, I wouldn't necessarily say that's new evidence. It's more just like kind of an extension of what we've already talked about. So the money it would take to deploy these rigs back to the field, as he stated, would be about $12 to $20 million per rig, which is obviously much more than they're valued at the moment. So that's kind of the issue we're having, is that we're having these valued as rigs when really they should be valued as inventory, because they're basically what they're doing with these rigs. And I explained this to Chad in our informals, is they have these in their yard, and anytime they need a piece of a rig or something like that, like they need a repair in the field, what they'll do is they'll go to this tile, they'll take a piece off, and then they'll send it so that they don't have to like buy a new part or something like that. But basically they're using these as salvage pieces to send parts out to the field. But these rigs are not able to be deployed in the state that they're in.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I must say that I'm a lawyer. Okay, so when you, and I have worked for oil companies before, when you say salvage, to me, a replacement part, that's not salvage. Scrap salvage to me means this is totally useless and we're sending it off to a metal recycler and we're selling it off the heap. So your words that you're using to me don't match. If you're going to take a part and send it out into the field and that part has some value, that is not scrap salvage. I just will say that to you. You can respond.
Yeah, so maybe my words are slightly mixed up here, but basically another portion of what was sent this morning that again we've talked about these past 2 years is these rigs, like if there's any part that is salvageable, that's all they're doing to them is taking them off the rig. The entire rig itself could not be, without like millions of dollars of capital being deployed into these rigs to bring them back. So these essentially are scrap piles. If they need to take something off, they can, but for the most part, that's all they're doing is taking a torch to these things and sending them as scrap. And these rigs are also very old, so they're obsolete. So if there's any part that could be salvaged, it would be a very minor part. It's not like there's nothing they could do to these rigs without, like I said, extensive capital deployment to these rigs that could bring them back to a point to where they could actually use them. So these rigs are essentially useless.
Do you know the average age of these rigs or the horsepower?
The average age, I have that on a spreadsheet, but they're all, let me see, I've got it right here.
25 years old? older than that?
Roughly about 20 years old. Yes, sir. Yeah, they're all. Yeah, I mean the earliest one. So the earliest one was put in service in 2003.
Okay.
So that one's over 20 years old. And then of these rigs, the last one that was the date it was put in service was 2008. So I mean we're looking at 20-plus-year-old rigs here in most accounts.
And then you don't know the horsepower, because the horsepower is one of the indicators of value to me.
Yes. So I can actually go down the list here if you need me to.
Just generally, I think we're only, go ahead, because we're only talking
Yeah,
about six.
it's most of them. So we have one that's 1,200, one that's 1,400, a couple that are 1,500, one that's 1,000, and then there's one that's 2,000. So basically anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 horsepower.
And then I saw on the assessor's information, it had the depths that they were assigned. The 20,000 feet is the deepest rig. Most of them are 15 to 17. Is that correct as well?
That would be correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Are these identically the same ones that you had last year? And you're going from 11 million down to 2 million?
There is one rig that was removed. I believe that was rig number 145. But all of these rigs we're speaking of today, yes, they were there last year.
Okay, are you ready for me to hear from the assessor?
Yes, ma'am. That's perfectly fine.
Okay. So the assessor's office continues to partner with TASK, Total Assessment Solutions, because they're considered to be the industry experts in valuing these types of assets, specifically related to these, the function of oil and gas companies, and specifically even more so these drilling rigs. So we started out with the cost. The cost of these rigs new was $41,383,268. Okay, so that's the cost of these 7 rigs that we're talking about, brand new. And what TASK has done this year is they've allowed a 70% reduction.
70% obsolete.
70% obsolescence reduction to allow for what he's talked about, the age and the usage of these rigs. And so that takes off $28,968,287. And that leaves us with a remaining value of $12,414,980. And so TASK did that at the time of the initial assessment. So their initial valuation for the rigs was the 12.4. Okay. After the informal, we went back to TASK to have them take a second look just to confirm that there was nothing they had missed or anything additional they would allow. And they came back with the same value. He said, Jerry, who's the owner of the company, said, I strongly disagree that these rigs will never work again, as this company is still operating. Additionally, as we've already discussed here, those individual components of the rigs can be utilized in other rigs. So there's a lot of value in that. The 70% reduction is the salvage value, is what Jerry has shared with us. That puts us in line with about where we ended up last year in terms of the total deduction that was giving. Where we started and where we ended was about 70% reduction. So we don't think anything has really changed since
That's what it
then.
was last year as well.
Yes.
70%.
Mm-hmm.
We need to discuss these materials that you sent Friday, and I haven't seen them.
You know, I don't think that that it would make a difference, but because we were not able to have our contractor review those, I don't think that we should consider those today.
Can we consider last year's evaluation sheet?
Absolutely.
Can I ask you one thing? Can I clarify the final number that you all have? Is it 12,856,000?
So the 12,856,000 includes some inventory as well.
So that is
And so that's a good question. On this account, we have the drilling rigs, the 7 rigs, but then we also have some inventory that's not in dispute. So the total for the account would be the 12,856,851. The 12.4 number is just for the rigs that are in dispute.
Eric, so tell me why you think the 70% obsolescent value is inappropriate or not sufficient?
Because we fundamentally disagree with their opinion of these rigs. So that 70% obsolescence would be for a rig that's stacked. So that would mean basically that they've pulled the rig out of the field, they're going to set it in the yard and wait for a new contract or something like that to come up. These rigs are not stacked. These rigs are not going to be deployed anymore, which I know we said we're not going to consider the information I sent this morning, but that in that email pretty clearly states that these rigs they're salvaged, they're scrapped. It would, like I said, it would take so much capital expenditure to get these rigs to a point where they would ever go out that it's not worth it, and they're not going to do that. So that's the issue we have there, is that they're counting these as stacked rigs, but they're not really rigs at all. As I said, they're using these in a salvage project where they're taking these old rigs that are obsolete now and they're scrapping them to get scrap value out of them. They're not using them, they're not stacking them to deploy them. Because that's what we've seen across, which I know we're talking about Oklahoma County specifically, but in other cactus rigs and other drilling rig companies we've seen, that 0.3 factor is like stacked factor. These rigs are not stacked, they're being scrapped. So that's where that obsolescence we feel it's not accurate as to what is actually being assessed. They're assessing these as rigs that can be deployed out to the field, and they're not. They're scrap rigs.
I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm insulting you. So you just have their word that they're never going to be sent back out again? I mean, what proof did you offer to the assessor that these in fact will never be deployed?
I mean, yes, we have correspondence with our client that is stating these are part of a salvage project and they're not sending these out back into the field.
Okay. What was your argument last year? Wasn't your argument the same last year that they were only scrap salvage, never to be deployed?
Yes, and it's the same rigs that we're talking about again. So,
but did we value them as scrap salvage, or did we value them as usable with a certain percentage of obsolescence?
Last year I would have to see what the exact. I've got the assessment here, but I mean it looks like basically last year you guys just cut it in half. Essentially, is what happened. So I don't know specifically if you took them as scrap value or if you just said, all right, these rigs have been sitting in the yard, so we're just going to assess everything at half. So I don't know exactly what your decision was, but basically last year the final value, which was another question I had, this year which I'll get to that in a second, but last year it just cut the value in half from $22,020,781 to $11,072,865.
Let me ask Ms. Porter, this is a fair question. If you thought this was simply a matter of scrap salvage, would you disagree with his valuation of $2,367,900?
Yes. I think that's not even close to where it should be, according to task. Last year also, just to clarify a little bit, the 22 million value is what was appealed to the BOE, okay? And then we ended up at 11, but we started out at 37. Their first notice was 37 million.
Okay.
So they did get a 70% reduction last year from beginning to end.
I had a question. If we change any of these values, do we have to include the inventory, that small amount of inventory, or do we say, here's what we think the rigs are and the inventory valuations are accepted as presented?
And he doesn't disagree with the inventory.
Because he doesn't disagree.
Yeah. The inventory values, well, yeah, we're not questioning those values.
I think as long as it's stated that way, that gives us what we need to be able to adjust the value and leave the inventory untouched.
Okay. So we could say so much minus inventory.
Yes.
Okay. That's agreed upon. Okay.
Yes.
What was our final value last year?
11,072,865.
And there's one rig less than last year presented, as far as a number.
I don't know if it's one less or if one of those rigs was replaced. So I don't know if we had just that one that's different last year versus this year.
Right.
I don't know that there were 8 rigs last year. Eric can maybe speak to that.
Well,
Yes, yeah, there's one less rig than last year. That rig I believe was replaced. It is no longer in the yard.
When you say replace, then so we have 8?
Did one go in and one come back? One go out and one come in? That's a replacement to me.
Yes. Eric?
Yeah, so that rig, let me see. It was rig number, I believe it was 145. Double checking here. Rig 145. Let's see, where'd that one go? Okay, that one is, let's see, yeah, it looks like that one was taken out of this yard.
Okay. So we went from an inventory of 8 to 7. Do you know if that rig was deployed? When you say the whole rig was taken
I'm
out?
showing that rig as stacked. I'm not showing it as deployed.
Okay, just stacked in another location.
Yes.
Okay.
Why would you do that?
Why would they do that? That specific rig, I am not sure because that one is. Let's see. That one, I believe, is a lot. I believe it's newer than most of these, so that one they found use for, but.
You have any questions?
I'm done.
Okay, we're gonna make our decision and you'll receive our decision in the mail. Where are you?
Okay. You said where am I?
You in Tulsa?
No, ma'am. I'm in Rockwall, Texas.
Oh, okay. Well, so,
I'm from Tulsa, but I work in Rockwall now.
okay, so maybe Wednesday or Thursday you'll get a letter from us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinarily, so I'm asking legal counsel. I just want to make sure Brett read our notice, the language in our notices. Ordinarily, we have a separate day for decision.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only decision. Let me ask, is this it for you guys?
This is it for us.
Okay.
Well, that's amazing.
Unless something weird happens. Our 6:30 would have been the deadline, June 30th. So if something got lost in the mail, of course, we wouldn't know about that. But to our knowledge, this is it for us.
Well, we're we're planning on, we generally do a formal closeout on the 31st. If we know that nothing else is gonna come in, we'll close out before that. And at this moment, I'm aiming for either next Wednesday or the last Monday. The last Monday would be the 25th.
Looks like
Let's see,
28th.
28th. The last Monday would
Yes.
be the 28th. Would you feel more comfortable if we did the 28th?
Yes,
So
I think the
anything
28th
strange
should
coming?
be, yes.
All right. So here was the question. We always do a separate day for decision. This is it. So it almost doesn't make any sense for us to come back.
You can do it on the 28th if you need to.
How can we do it
No,
today?
can we
can
do
do
it?
Right
Oh,
now.
can you do it today? Yeah, I mean, if you're ready and you don't
Okay.
need to, you can go ahead and do that.
Because we
That
include
shouldn't
that
be a time.
paragraph on what action
And
is.
yes, and the fact of the matter is that you told him you wouldn't be making a decision. He was here at the hearing. He understands you'll be making a decision and getting a letter later this week. So that kind of indicates that you're going to be making a decision now. I don't think
Okay.
that you're not violating any
Okay.
any rules
Okay.
on the meetings.
Okay.
Right.
So let me tell you that there is something magic to the use of the English language, and scrap salvage to me is this is junk. When it's junk, all you can do is send it to a metal yard. You know, it's gone. If he's admitting that they are at least using it for replacement parts, then it has a value greater than what he is saying. Also, the disappearance of this one rig, which happened to be the newest rig, indicates to, I don't want to call the man a liar. I think probably he just doesn't know, and he's taken his client's word for it. What happened to that rig? I mean, why would you move it? If it's truly scrap salvage, it's going to stay in the heap where the rest of the salvage stuff is going to go. So I'm not going for that. So the only issue I would have is that we have, if those are the same 7, the only problem I would have is we have a higher value on them than we had last year. I'm not certain that this is because of the way he sent his information in, that these are the same 7, the identical 7 that was there last year. So my inclination is, not figuring that out, I would make a small reduction in the request of 12,856,000, but whatever number we would begin with, we would add on the inventory. And the inventory differential was about $440,000. So that's where I am.
I am with you almost entirely. You know, if I have a car, I'm getting rid of it. It's worth more piece by piece than it is just selling it to somebody if I was going to scrap it out.
Right.
So these are small rigs. They are moving to obsolescence because they're underpowered compared to what is nowadays. Nowadays it's 4,000 horsepower and up. And these rigs are not able to drill much more than 1 mile.
Right.
The laterals now are 2 and 3 miles. So I understand that, but there still is a market for these apparently. And I'm like you, owner. I would like to adjust it maybe down 1 rig from the 12,000,008 and value that rig somewhere in the average of that they've presented values that has of. They go from 1.6 to 1.8 million, so maybe somewhere in 1.7 million deduction. I mean, I think we can consider that and then still honor everything because I think there's a lot of value in these rigs.
I agree.
Okay, let's do we're going to start with 12,414,980. And we take away 1.6.
1.6 or 1.7?
1.6 is the low, 1.8 is the high, so I'm comfortable with 1.7.
980.
1.56.
1.47 from there. 7 from the 7. 1.1714980.
Again.
Okay, and then we have to add inventory.
Could you repeat those numbers again, Al?
11,714,980.
I don't think that's 1.7 million. Is it 170,000 or 1.7
Oh, I'm sorry.
million?
107.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
I get I get 11,156,851.
Wait a
We're
minute.
taking 1.7 million off.
1.7 is the 980 is going to come. The 14 is going to come. 7 from 14 is 7. Oh, 1.
From the 12,856, right?
No, 1214. 12414.
Oh, we're not taking it off.
That's it. That's what it was. You would already take it. She's already taken the inventory.
Yeah. So.
Well, and so, okay. So then we could just take the 17 off of the total then. I'll do it that way. 12856,851 minus 1,700,000. So that 851
is
56, 7 minus 1. 11,156,851.
11,816,000. Did you say 851?
11,156,851.
Yeah. And that is
That's the total.
That's the value of the rigs.
That's
and
everything.
and the inventory.
That's everything.
That's
Okay,
everything.
that's everything.
Because I took it away from the
that's the assessor's current valuation of the rigs. Right?
the total
856.
with the inventory is 12,800. So if I just take the 17 off of that, I've kept the inventory in there. So that's 11,156,851.
Yeah, that's the first one I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you take it
Just
off
make
of,
sure you let her know that, because before you were indicating you were going to give her a number that didn't have the inventory in it. But you
Right.
can just make sure.
yeah, you
that-
are gonna take it off the 12,414. It's 10,714,980. So it's less than what it was last year.
So
Okay, then with that, I need to add back. If she wants a specific number for the inventory, then I need to give it to her. So,
she said she has that. So we could make a motion for 10,714,980 plus the agreed upon values of the equipment.
okay, so and then we'll state that therefore it ends up at 11,156,851.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll entertain that motion to set the value of BOE number 155.
I move we set the value of BOE 155 at 10,714,980 for the rigs, plus the agreed upon amount for equipment at 11,156,851.
No.
I'm sorry, 11 million. Okay.
Equipment is 441.
Inventory.
Inventory, 441,871.
Okay.
So the total is 11,156,851.
Yes.
Let's go over the numbers one more time.
Okay. The valuation of the rigs at 10,714,980
What's the valuation of
plus the valuation of the agreed upon valuation of the equipment.
$441,871.
$441,871.
Making the total
Total of
11,156.
156,851.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Town, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Sellers?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so now the last thing we have to do is just say that we, upon the advice of Ms. Porter, who is the head of business personal, this is it, with, save for some unforeseen mail fluke. And so we will probably set our last hearing for Monday, July 28th. that gives enough time for if something slipped through the cracks, that we can set. That gives us 2 weeks to play with it.
And it gives this, the excise people the
Yes.
ability to schedule another meeting that same day if they need one for transfers.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this has been a nice run with the assessor this year. This means that we can kind of relax here and just have meetings with kids. Yeah,
All right.
and I'm so glad you came today. Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to approve. Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.